Hello everyone, and I'm just going to do a little bit more on UI while I'm in the mood, quite frankly. So here is our sort of fake settings screen from before. Here's a dialog box. What I wanted to do was just have a look at little animations, transitions. So moving from the functional into the more aesthetic. So here is our dialog box. With our sort of custom title message, and we can have different kinds of buttons. But let's use as an example of how to make things animate a little bit. So we might want to add some interest to our UI, which can be done quite simply in a number of ways. So what we'll do is just play an animation on event construct, and then we can play a separate animation not on event destruct, which is when everything is just about to go black, but in our close dialog event. So we'll do that in a second, but first let's make the animation. So a first thing we can do, animations, we have to bring that up, add an animation. Let's have a zoom in animation. Now every element in the widget hierarchy has render transform. So this is something that can be applied to any element, including the whole widget. Also render opacity is down there, that's another one that's going to be quite useful. But let's start with zoom in. So I'm going to add this being the whole thing as the element that is being animated. I'm going to track the transform, and within the transform I'm going to track the scale. So I'm going to make a new key at time 0, I think, am I? And then let's say at 1, well, let's make that 0, and then at time half a second make a key and make that 1, and you can see the I'm used to using Unreal Engine 4, it doesn't piss the window off quite so easily. So we can actually just see what that looks like. So all we're going to do is a little whoop when we bring up the dialog, and we can reverse that to send it away when it's gone. So I'll leave it there so we can actually see what we're doing. And so now when we go to the event construct, in our list of variables has appeared this, and we just plug that in. And then when we go to the close dialog, we want to get a variation of that, which is play animation with a finished event, because we don't want to remove the window until it's finished blipping out of existence. And so we'll get our zoom in animation, and we will say play it reverse, and then when it's finished, sorry I forgot how this one works, we'll call it there. So let's see if that works. Bloop, and then cancel. That didn't work. Fantastic. Well, that's quite pretty though, isn't it? So what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Maybe I need to put the widget there, target self. Well, let's try self. We may want to start at time. Well, I think that might work in reverse. Let's see if that's going to do it. There we go. So it's not the prettiest of things. That's one possible thing. And I'm going to go back to the dialog box. We can even, like I said, the transform applies to anything. So we could even do something a little bit crazy, like rotation 360 times 3. So to complete 3, sorry, it's a bit hard to see, 3 rotations. Boop, 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 boop. So that's ridiculous. but you might have a reason to do that. Whoop! I mean, I think that looks absolutely horrible, but you know, it's a look. An alternative that is quite nice is fade in. Now you might want to do some combination of these, but all named widgets. This going to track the render opacity, and this is something I do all the time. Just fade things in nicely. In fact, I might do it on a 0.25 second to make it a little bit snappier. Now, it's interesting. I think it's because of the way I did the borders. It's fading in the white before it fades in the black, or something silly. You can also do this to sub-elements. And let's see how that works. So it's not quite the transition I was expecting. So it sort of goes opaque before it goes black. So it goes through a sort of mid-grey tone, but normally that's not a thing. So if I'd done the border a different way, I think it wouldn't be doing that. And then those are the two sort of main things I do, either fading it in or zooming it in. And maybe even doing both, which you can either do by having one animation do both things, or you can just chain them. So I'll do a zoom in and a fade in. I will remove the exciting spinning effect, as that is no good, and I will do the same here. Well, yeah, we'll just zoom it out because the animation's different lengths. That's going to be interesting, but yeah, in terms of the zoom in, so you can see it's doing some interesting stuff. One last thing I'll do, I want to make this a quick one, is to look at animations for other things. So if I go back to this one, with our settings menu, what you could do, and I'll duplicate these a few times so we've got more of a effect. If we go to these widgets, we could make this have a fade in. We only want to fade in, we don't want to fade out. It doesn't make any sense to fade out. We'll say this render opacity starts at 0, comes to 1, and we will play this in construct. I'll give it a tick. I think I've got something on the mind. Play animation, and we have our animations variable. Easier then is just to have a delay. I'll just make it retriggerable because you can in theory have this retriggered, and then random float in range, make that bigger and add 1 second, so it's got time to refresh. So here we go. Right, so the initial condition was wrong, so we have to set render opacity at the start. So that looks odd, but you can see how you can do that with perhaps just staggered delays rather than random delays to make elements pop in your UI, especially if you're going for a sort of glitchy look. And in terms of glitchy looks, you might want to have, say, I need to make this stick around. I can't. So glitch 1 would be maybe taking your setting name doing a huge amount with it, but just sort of letting it bounce up and down a little bit. And so if we play that, well, of course there's nothing in there. Let's put something there. And if we play our thing, oh good grief. Right, so we need to change our default variable because it's doing a pre-construct. So setting name will default to setting name. Right, back to animations, play. So you can see it's slightly glitching, and if we make it looping, right. So that's looping, and so we could either have that play intermittently, or we could do that on a random loop as well. So we want that to be delay, but we want to do some things immediately. So do our delay as the last thing, and then immediately play our glitch animation now, and then we can do the random float in range. Let me just check how long it is. So that's 0.75. So 0.7. So this should, I mean it's overkill, but it should number of loops to play, 0 to loop indefinitely. So now, as things come in, they now have this glitching, which I think would look better if it had large periods of not glitching. So again, going back to our animation, let's then say that we want it to be 2 seconds long, and that'll be 1. So there's a little glitch and then a lot of time not glitching. Let's make it even bigger. So that's a 3 second long thing with a bit of glitching, and we'll make it start anywhere within that range. So it's possibly hard to see on the video, but things are glitching, and it's a little bit regular. You can do things by having, you know, different animations picked randomly, but there you've got a slightly glitchy thing, and then maybe you could do a separate thing, another sort of let's make another animation, glitch 2, and with this all I want to do is make this just ping a little bit. Will be the transform, translation, and X. So I want to sort of send it like that, and then do a slight curve so that it's, we don't want it looping now. So that's a big glitch, but we want that to be really infrequent, and I'm going to add a custom event, glitch after delay, and I'm going to call it there. There's a few ways to do this. Timer's probably the best. You could just use delays, but set timer by event, time, random float and range. So between 2 and 5 seconds, you want it to be not overused. And custom event, do glitch, play animation, and then what do I call that? Glitch after delay. Just run that again. So every now and again I just glitch out, and that one is more random. So I don't know that that looks any good, but you can see how you might use that to put a bit of life, especially if you've got, you know, life into things, especially if you've got a sort of glitchy dynamic. But you could also animate things onto screen and so on. So I haven't gone too deep into that, but that's just some thoughts of things you might do with animations to bring widgets on and off screen and to animate elements on them. And there's a whole ton more stuff you can do and whatever, but we'll leave it there.